Well, let's get some political analysis on this. I'm joined by political analyst Dumisani Hlophe. Mr. Hlophe, always a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for coming in. There are the big issues we'll deal with, of course, drought, the fees and transformation. I'd like your thoughts, though, on the comments about the laughter from President Zuma. Is it disrespectful? Is it arrogant?
I think President Zuma uses laughter as a defense mechanism. When immediately he can't deal with the question. So he uses laughter as a means of, de-arming, so to speak, the opposition. But I think he has used it quite several times such that it's not having the necessary effect that it should be.
And as far as the opposition parties giving him grief about all the laughter yesterday, did they get the answer that they wanted from the president about the laughter? He says, and I quote, "How is it hurting?" Did they get the answers they wanted about the laughter?
I don't think they necessarily wanted to get the answer about the laughter, but they wanted to... What the role of the opposition is to prove that the president is incapable of doing what he's constitutionally mandated to do. So I think the laughter, it became a useful tool for the opposition to prove that it's not serious when the country, is facing, some serious shortcoming in terms of, your fees must fall, energy issues, and, issues, around, drought and all of that. So I think for a change, rather than being a useful tool to the president yesterday, it became a useful tool for the opposition.
Well, let's talk about some of the answers that he did give in and amongst the giggling and the laughing, as a lot of the newspapers are saying. The drought is the big crisis at the moment, apart from the economy, obviously. How has the president, according to his answers, going to be handling this drought? Is it being taken seriously enough?
I'm not sure at the presidential level, but if you look at how some of the provincial governments, particularly KZN, they have done quite substantively. I'm not sure if the president was able to articulate these particular, responses or reactions that the provincial governments, have undertaken.
The issue of fees must fall, still a very, very big issue. In fact, where Parliament was yesterday, just a couple of hundred metres from there, we saw that incredible protest, those worrying visuals outside Parliament. So the President, more than anybody, I imagine, aware of those issues of the student fees. How do you think the Presidency and the President handled that particular question?
I think the difficulty for the President and the Presidency is that the fees must fall movement is more political than, rather than a government program issue. If you look at how the students are dealing with the fees must fall issue, they are looking at it from the Freedom Charter. They are looking at it from the resolution of the ANC. Now, it requires a more of a political response rather than what the government has been doing at this point in time. I think for me, the most dangerous part, Chief, is that we are getting to a point where in the increase of the mass protest, you are getting to a point where the ANC, the President Zuma in particular, is beginning to follow a mass revolt rather than leading the masses. And if this series of protests, escalate, they're going into land issues, unemployment issues, we are likely to see an ANC government, a president that follows, a mass undertaking on the issues rather than leading.
And this is where I was hoping to put this question to you, and I'm glad you answered the way you did. So you have the ANC Freedom Charter, then you also have the president of the ANC, obviously President Zuma in that capacity, and the president of the country. And this is where this topic is going to come in again of the comment, where I'm going. Which came first, which comes first, the ANC or South Africa?
Look, there are two ways of answering your question. It's either you take it literally or contextually.
Which are you taking it as?
I prefer the contextual approach. The contextual approach says that, you see, for me, it's not country versus ANC, or let me not say ANC, it's not the country versus the ruling party. It's the relationship between the ruling party and the country and the state. Now, you cannot have a powerful government if you have got a very weak ruling party. So by nature, political parties are intrinsically inward-looking because they need to empower themselves, capacitate themselves, so that when they become a ruling party, they can perform. One of the biggest problems of this country is that the ANC, the ruling party, at the organizational level, at the Lutuli House, is very weak. it is unable to hold its deployees in government to account. And because of that, a whole range of unsavory things happen in government because the ruling party at an organizational level is weak. Now, if you look at China, the Communist Party as an organization is very, very powerful. As a result, it's able to direct properly, the government. So I think what President Zuma is trying to say, without sounding to be his Mark Maharaj, I think what he's trying to say is to say that unless the ANC as a ruling party is capacitated enough, its performance in government is going to be weak. It's a very strategic question that any political party which is a ruling party, even if this was the DA, the EFF, they would have to deal with that question that say, how should the ruling party at an organizational level relate to the state?
Fascinating. Dumisani, thank you very much for coming in to speak to us today. Political analyst Dumisani Hlophe unpacking what was the final sitting, the final question and answer session for President Zuma in Parliament yesterday, for this year anyway.